After you guys have your dog or cat fully drawn out and you've checked all the details, we're gonna go ahead and erase the grid off of your dog or cat's body and head. For this next step, we're gonna be making an underlayer to this dog. An underlayer is basically the base color for your project. So depending on whatever color your dog or cat is, everybody's base color will be a little bit different, okay? I put links on Google Classroom for you guys to the Animal Friends website. So there are pictures of your dog or cat on there, and you can kind of look to see in color what your cat or dog looks like, okay? Because I know these are just black and white, so it might be kind of hard to see the details. If your cat or dog is not on the site, that probably means they got adopted already, which is good, but you don't have a picture to reference. So what you can do is just look for a cat or dog on the site that looks similar, and that should be fine. So for this next step, you guys are gonna need your reference photo or the photo online, a watercolor palette, which I'll give you in class, a little cup full of water with maybe 1 or 2 brushes of different sizes, and then I'm gonna give you guys a palette to use so you can mix your colors. So this is actually my dog. His name's Chip. He's a reddish brown color, so I'm going to need to mix. Now, some of you have a cat or dog that you're drawing that may have 2 colors. So you may need to pick the color that is dominant on your animal, or just use 2 colors. I'm gonna take brown, so I'm gonna get my brush wet and dip it in the brown, move it over to my palette, and then I'm gonna clean out my brush and then take just a little bit of red. And I wanna make enough so that I can paint my entire dog, at least the body and head. If you don't make enough, it's okay. It's pretty easy just to mix more. But you wanna make sure that you're adding some water to this. If you're just using pure color, it's gonna be really, really dark. So before I actually put this onto my dog, I'm gonna test this off to the side just to make sure it's the right color I want. We will be cutting our dogs and cats out, so we're not actually gonna use this background. So it's okay if you test. So that's about the color I want. I just mixed brown and red to get that color. But you guys have, some of you may be using black, red, orange, yellow, and brown. So you obviously probably won't be using purple, blue, or green for this step. But I'm gonna go ahead and paint Chip's head and body with this reddish brown mixture I made. Okay, so I painted Chip's entire body and head. Something to keep in mind, this watercolor will dry a little bit lighter than when you first put it on the paper, and that's okay. This does not need to be a super dark coat of paint. You may notice if you're gonna use black, it might even look a little bit gray, and that's okay, because this is just our base layer. So we'll actually go back when this is dry and we're gonna use color pencils over top. So don't worry if it's too light, we're gonna be adding layers to this. If you are kind of like, man, that is really, really too light, because maybe your dog is a dark brown, you can do another coat. You just want to make sure you let the paint dry first, because you will get holes in your paper if you put too much water on, okay? I'm gonna spend the rest of this time adding base coats to his little bandana, his tongue, inside his mouth, and his eyes. So for this, I might need to switch to a smaller brush, because if I use a big brush, it might bleed into other areas. You also want to be careful when you do this that your paper's fairly dry, because if I were to paint this eye black and the hair around the eye is still wet, it's going to bleed into the hair and kind of make like a big blobby mess. So just be careful before you start doing all this detail work. Okay, I've added a base coat of watercolor to everything on Chip, including his little bandana and his tongue and his eyes. Now we're gonna let this dry. So I know these look kind of weird right now. They might look like a cartoon because it looks so flat, right? So one-dimensional. But what we're gonna do once these dry is we'll add layers of colored pencil on top to make everything look like it has a texture and to make it look more realistic.